Hey everyone, it's Brian here, back with a brand new interview. Today I'm speaking with Louis Southard. He is the driving force behind this new anthology book called Comics Are Dying the Comic. Louis, thank you so much for joining me. I appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. I was just telling you off the air that Fanboy Factor has actually been like a humongous help with this project, with some of the press releases. So much so that like a lot of the artists and who applied for the job came from looking at
That's
your
great.
articles. So
Thank you.
that I owe a lot to you right now to getting this done because as you can imagine, getting 100 people was was very difficult. It was a very
Yeah.
stressful time.
So tell us about the project and how it came to be.
Oh, okay. That's a bit of a loaded question. So like all good things, it comes out of anger. I think it was at the end of 2023. Um, there was a lot of controversies. I'll use that online and specifically in the comics community. Just very like, oh, once again, comics are dying. These are the
Right,
reasons why. Um, a lot of it's slanted towards anti-inclusivity and
right. Yeah.
anti-progressive ivism in books. I don't know if you remember, there was like a viral video that went by. There was like a comic book store owner who he was complaining or stating his opinion rather. That's a much more better way to do it.
Yeah.
Stating his opinion about how comics are going, and people responded in two ways. One I agree with, which is they're like, "Oh no, like these books are fine, and people have different
Yeah.
tastes and blah blah blah." And then other people responded with like remarks about this person's appearance, about like
Yeah.
basically bullying, and I
Yeah.
didn't like that. And then
Yeah,
of course that
I saw a lot of like people like Mark Millar, Mark Wade, some other
well
people get
that's where
involved in the conversation.
that's where the other part comes in because then a whole other group of people who I'd like to remain nameless came in and they really cranked it up to 11 and I strongly dislike those people. So it's just like this is too much. As a comic book creator looking at all this, it's just like this is too much negativity. This is too much uh just nonsense thrown into the wind all in the name of comics, but no one's actually doing anything about comics or for comics. So I was like, well, I've had this idea in the back of my brain of making a book about originally it was about something. It was like, but the idea was rooted in getting a lot of amazing artists, uh, each artist doing a page, and I was never certain about the subject. Um, and then this was like the epiphany, God Himself gave me the idea of like why not a book about the comics industry, about how the very beginning to today or roughly today, and how we got here and how comics have been dying and changing and evolving, and some things people complain about today have been around for like 60 years and stuff like that, as well as supporting the wide array of artists working today. Like there are so many wonderful artists, and I feel like that was the main thing of just trying to actually support the people making the books,
Right.
trying to like give people jobs, pay them on time, treat them well, and it being like, okay, can you draw a page really well? Sure, hop on board. Here's a page for you. And it doesn't matter. It's we've got everything from like I think there's one person who's 19 and this is like their first ever work. And then we have
Wow.
like people who've been working for who knows how long, like decades worth of experience. So that was kind of my thing. I wanted to make something that was positive, at least for in my mind, like something for my own mental health and night something to share with all these other people, and hopefully to spread with a lot of readers who will feel the amount of love and passion and energy that we put into this book, which I feel like it is oozing out of in every
It
possible
is.
pore.
It is. I did get it. I got a chance to read it, and I have to say just wow, because there was a lot of, I consider myself very knowledgeable, but the amount of research you did was just like blew my mind. It just really did. Some of the stuff you found, and it was just like, whoa, I did not know this. So it was, I truly enjoyed it.
Oh, well, thank you for saying that. Yeah, no, the research was definitely the first bit of like, now I only had 100 pages to work with. So forgive me if I didn't get every facet of history. That's an apology to you, an apology to the viewer and any readers, because I know there's going to be people being like, you left this rock unturned, the stone
Right.
unturned. And I apologize for neglecting your favorite rock. That's my Louis Southard guarantee right now. You have my apology first and foremost. Um, but no, I learned quite a bit. I fashioned myself a big comic book fan, so I knew a good deal going into this. But I would say it was the research into the Platinum Age, which is mid 1800s to, let's say, early 1900s. That was the big chunk of learning.
Right.
Um, Especially like things like Little Nemo and Slumberland, learning like the big impact of that. More recently, I'd say the one thing or one area that I didn't really know that much about was underground comics. So things like Robert Crumb and people like that. So it's just like, oh, cool, get to learn something myself. And I did have a fun. I did show people. I had a beautiful spreadsheet with all the things. And then I showed it to one person, and then it's like, you're an idiot. You missed all this stuff. And I'm like, oh, I am a fool. I did miss all this. So I had to reorganize it, but that was kind of good because, like I said, I got to learn a lot myself, and it was good. It was a good project for me in that essence. So yeah, no, most stones are not left unturned, but apologies to the neglected ones.
Yeah, I wasn't that familiar with the Platinum Age, and yeah, wow, that kind of opened up my eyes. In terms of like the gold and silver, bronze, modern, you definitely hit on, the majority of the highlights, I would definitely say. Like you said, there were, one or two things that were kind of left out. I do kind of see that. But I think it's subjective, at least, you really tackled it. It seemed like you really got the really important things. I really felt that way. Like I don't think you really missed any major highlights or, dates or anything like that, to be honest with you. I feel like you really got the meat of everything.
I did have one person who worked on the book like message me in the middle of the night in a cold sweat being like, you forgot something. And I was like, what was it? What was it? And then it's like the web comic Homestuck. If you're familiar with that, that's one of like the first biggest web comics in like the mid 2000s. And doing a lot of research, it's like, oh yeah, I did miss that. But I will say something we've not mentioned is that this whole project is being presented on Zoop, which is a crowdfunding platform similar to Kickstarter, except Zoop. I'm a very sleepy guy. Like I like to stay in bed all day. I like to nap. I like to dream. And you probably won't catch me alive up until maybe 10 or 11, right? So AM, PM, who's to say? But but the problem is, I know the solution is Zoop. They do a lot of the heavy lifting that a lot of people are forced to do themselves when
Right.
crowdfunding. So Zoop does a lot of does the printing and distribution and the manufacturing of a lot of campaign products. So they handle the books and they handle extra things like for our campaign in particular, we have a poster, a special exclusive poster that goes along with that, as well as some additional things. So it's just kind of good that I can keep sleeping and they will take it from here. Um, but what was your question again? I feel like this was segueing to
No, no,
something.
yeah. You pretty much answered it. I mean, it
Oh
was
no, no, no! I
impressive.
remembered. Oh, wait, I'm sorry. This was the whole point of me even going down that tangent. Um, we because it's crowdfunding, we have a goal, but we do have stretch goals, and one of them is if we reach a certain amount of money, we will be adding 10 more pages to the book with 10 new artists. So if if there are a couple things that a lot of people say we missed, or I've been suggested, then luckily we'll be able to go back and add a bit more. So that would be really nice. That's not a guarantee, but it's certainly a possibility.
I also found it very impressive that you were able to get Mark Wade for the introduction. I mean, that I'm huge Mark Wade fan. He's the type of writer who some comes in, fixes the book, and, and does a great job of straightening when it kind of gets off on a tangent. So it's
I, I'm a great fan of Mark Wade. I specifically really love his World's Finest works right
right.
now,
Yeah, it's a
and
great story.
his Shazam book that is one of my big favorites. I started talking to Mark. What year is it? It's 2024. So last year I had a book with Sumerian Comics called The Blackout Bombshell, which was a comedy noir. And I was looking for pull quotes, and I reached out to Mark to see if he'd be interested in reading and providing one. And he was nice enough to get back to me and do just that. And then when you establish correspondence with someone as intrinsically tied to comics as Mark Wade, you gotta start asking questions because
Right.
now you got the time. So I was asking him a bunch of Shazam questions. I was asking him a question about alternatives for Shazam because I'm a big he should be Captain Marvel guy. I don't
Right.
like I don't like the Shazam name. So I was like, why don't you do this name? Or the big one I was saying is like, why is it not Captain Thunder? Because Jeff Johns did that in Flashpoint, and then he gave
Right.
me like this whole explanation for this. So I was like, okay, fair enough. And then it's like, okay, on to the next question. And then yeah, so it was just a nice little correspondence. Um, and then when I got this idea, so I already, he's already familiar with me, or we're familiar with each other. So when this popped up, I was like, I think I have just the thing that you would be interested in. And I suggested the idea, and sure enough, he was very gung ho and was very polite and very kind enough to offer us a little forward, very positive forward about the overall themes of this book. So I have to really thank him for taking the time out of his very busy schedule to do that for us, which it was very nice of him to do so.
Cool. I mean, uh, this book. I like I said, I really found it interesting. You have the timeline box giving, letting people know what happened at this point in time with comic books. And then you have an artist's interpretation. Sometimes I'm trying to avoid those lovely copyright things, but it's
A
still,
very, very legally distinct characters
yeah,
pop up.
but still links to what the information box is saying. So I really did enjoy that. It's these copyright, yeah, the
Let me
companies
ask you
aren't.
this. I'm going to ask you a question. I'm assuming you read it. Do you have it like a top three of pages, or it doesn't have to be like the legally distinct character, perhaps events in the book, because I know that's the best thing about this. 100 different pages, 100 different artists. Everyone's going to have like a different favorite, and
I,
I'm sorry.
you know, I got to be honest with you. It's what really blew me away is the character of Hercules Hero. Is that?
Hugo Hercules.
Oh, Hugo Hercules. I'm sorry. Uh, I've never heard of him. I always assumed that the kind of the first, the Phantom was number one, followed by, Superman in actual comics. I had no idea about this character. And when I started doing research after seeing, reading this, I was just like, okay, this is cool. I had no clue about him.
You just hit two nails on the head with that little sentence right there. because that's what this book, I think, is all about. I think it's a wonderful springboard for either like existing comics fans or newer comic fans to like really learn and dive in, or if they already know about something, it's just like an encouraging
Right.
piece to learn. And I think that's very needed. I don't know. I think like the Western comic book industry can be a bit difficult to get into sometimes when you're trying to learn about the entire history. This is like Cliff
Right.
Notes. You know,
Yeah.
this is just like we're gonna hit the hits, we're gonna go all around, and we're gonna get to the basics of like significant moments and books and people in comic book history. It's all done very tongue in cheekly. I think
Yeah, it
it's all
is.
very funny. I hope it's funny. Um, there are some serious pages, but the one thing I've gotten from people who have read it, they're saying it's not what they expected, but in a good way, and I'm very happy about that. In terms of Hugo Hercules, I knew about him before this project because I'm a fan of Alan Moore's League of Extraordinary Gentlemen,
Right.
and
Right.
he did a spin-off with the female or the daughter of Captain Nemo,
Nemo. Yeah.
and it's a trilogy, and Hugo Hercules pops up as like a mercenary type guy for hire,
Yeah.
and it's
Yeah, I
like
remember that scene.
yeah. So it's like, oh, and then I'm like, who the? I was like you. I was like, who the hell is this guy? And then I googled it. It's like, oh, this is like a character that's existed for over like 100 years. So it's like, and yeah, when you dig in, it's like it's considered to be the first like superhero or like super powered individual just helping people
Yeah.
in Western comics, which is like, oh, that's kind of neat because no spandex, no nothing. He's just like a big dude being
Yeah.
like one of my favorite ones in the comic strips is he's lifting an old car over his head to help a guy kiss his girlfriend who's on a balcony, and it's like that's his super heroic deed. So the page you referenced, he's public domain, so luckily I can include him in this
Right.
book. But the page you referenced is actually inspired by one of the strips where a lady is, chasing after a trolley that she missed, and then he just grabs the trolley and just basically hands it to her. It's like, here you go. And so it's like just a little encapsulation of that. Yeah. So there we go.
It's funny because in the beginning you said it, every year it's just somebody saying comics are dying, comics are dying, comics are. I think it's been like in the 70s, 80s, 90s. They've always been this comics are dying thing. But you know, it, as you can see in your book, they do survive. They adapt or they change in different things. Unfortunately, there is still that stigma with non-comic readers that comics are just about people in spandex and things like that. And it's when you really, that's why I like all the stuff you covered. When you really dig into it, there are stories just about on any subject. It just happens to be in a graphic art mode, and I found it, it's that rally cry is just it is getting annoying. It is.
People love to be miserable. I think
Yeah,
that is the thing. And I very much consider myself an optimist. So I have to be that way to thrive in this type of industry. So with everything we covered, um, we wanted to hit all the like very popular genres all throughout history that still
right.
exist to this day. So yeah, of course we do superheroes, but we do um, all the wide array of independents that
Yep.
have always existed. We got like 90s extreme. We do funny animal comics. We do comic strips, underground comics, as I said, European comics. There's a page about manga about Tezuka, who did Astro Boy, and he's like considered the modern father of manga. Yeah, like I said before, like this my my dream, my goal is that this is going to be something you can hand to a non-comic reader, and it'll open their eyes a little
I agree.
bit about like, oh wow, there's a lot here. And me, I've been a comic fan since I was 12 years old. And when I was 13, 14, I thought Spider-Man was probably the biggest thing in the world, right? Everyone knows Spider-Man. But then you go to Spain or France, the biggest comic book character in the world is Scrooge McDuck. You go to Belgium, it's Asterix and Obelix, right?
Yep.
So it's like it that blew my mind, and it's just interesting to see that everyone has like different cultures, have different tastes in terms of comics, and that just boils down to how varied the medium is. If you want to look at manga, like there's lots of manga about every conceivable
Yep.
concept. Like
Yep.
like there's one manga I saw the other day is a romance about two people, a business executive and a store clerk who start a romance during their smoke breaks. And each chapter is based around their smoke breaks. And it's just it's nuts, but it's all about what you can write, how you present it. If you actually have a kernel of an idea, then yeah, sure, why not go for it? It's like anything. If you have a solid enough idea, it'll work.
Now, while technically comics are not dying, I mean, would you agree that the comic shop, the actual brick and mortar store is
Right.
they are suffering these days.
Yes.
Um, a lot of it has to do with rent and other factors. I don't, it's they're not seeing as much store traffic as they used to. In fact, even Barnes and Nobles, they used to have a larger graphic novel section, and it's shrinking while the manga section is getting,
Expanding.
yeah, and a lot of people are going to online. That's why I don't think comics will ever die. They will adapt, but the actual idea of a physical copy is, I think that's the one that might be the question, that is that will we see that go away, the physical copy?
I don't I remember a couple years ago there was the same type of question in terms of regular novels, and I think that was around the time the Kindle had come out. That was like the
Right.
big thing. Like this is going to, you know, blast all books away. Printing presses close up shop. We're going digital. But I really think overall people want books at the end of the
Right.
day. In terms of like comics, I think single issues. I don't think comics will ever go away. I think single issues present a very big problem in today's economy and
Right.
reader interest. Um, I think if there were more, I do agree with DC and Image are starting to do pocket-sized collections of their stories. I
Right.
think like making books more accessible and more whole, um, at a lower cost, is a great way to encourage new readers. But I'll say this: I don't think there's ever really such a thing as like people want books, people want to read, and I think at the end
Right.
of the day they want good stories and they want interest, they want big high concepts. For example, the you see look right now with Marvel with their ultimates line,
Yeah.
they're selling out every copy. And I have seen in my town and online and just from people like they see people they've never seen before in their entire life walking into the store being like, where is it? Where's Ultimate Spider-Man #2? Like I need to see that. So I think at the end of the day, it's just about like you gotta hit. They say, yo, don't go give people what they want, but I think sometimes you have to give them a
Right.
little, you got to give them something, and you got to give them like a jumping, and that's already stacked in terms of creative teams. So I think you just need a big idea, um, and like the manpower to back it up,
Right.
and yeah, yeah, and then that will. that'll get people because I can't. It just depends on the story. It just depends on the book. Depends on the creative team. You know, like
Oh yeah,
I think if anything, they should. Um, it's like quality over quantity. If you
you're right.
decrease the number of books and maybe focus on like a couple really strongly stacked long running series as
Hmm.
opposed to just like shots in the dark, like, okay, we're doing this 4 issue, we're doing this 6 issue
Yeah,
miniseries, we're doing that, we're doing this. Seeing what sticks, maybe just like really make your best things the best they can be
you're right.
and then just see what happens. But that's just my opinion. I don't know nothing. I'm just some crazy guy that made a random book. So, what do I know?
For me, it just seems like it's in collect. I mean, I love going to the comic shops to talk to people about the stuff, but
Right.
in terms of buying the weekly books, it does seem like at least the big two are kind of almost damaging themselves by selling the individual issues. And then as soon as that last issue comes out of the storyline or a mini, the following week you get the trade. It's just like,
Yeah.
so what we already know how it's going to be. Why should we keep going to the keep buying them on a weekly basis if we're just going to end up getting them in trade anyhow? I mean, it seems like they're doing their own damage to that. They seem to be getting a little better. I know for a while they were. I can't confirm it, but there was all kinds of rumors that writers were told to keep storylines to 4 issues so they could keep it in a trade. And I don't know if there's any truth to that, but it did seem like that for a while, where the storylines were just 4 issues. And next,
Right.
like I said, next thing you know, it's in a trade. Now it seems like they're going back to the going for the longer story. But you still just don't have that like long-term thing, like Chris Claremont on his X-Men run, just the way he would set up for years and years and years. You don't see that as often as when he was doing like the X-Men. And it's
I wholeheartedly agree. I miss like long running story arcs with like either one person at the helm who's like, I
right,
have this vision, I'm gonna see it through, like Chris Claremont, or even a team, who's like, we're gonna like you and me, we're doing this thing, gonna see it through.
right,
I mean, you look at if well, let's stick with Marvel for this example. How did Marvel start with like what's their flagship book in the 60s? Fantastic Four, Spider-Man, uh Stanley, Jack Kirby, they stay on 100 issues, over
yep,
100 issues for Fantastic Four. That's two guys doing their thing, and that really creates a cohesive storyline, and that's the foundation. That's the thing we
right,
all look back to write today. Um and then now, like I think the last big writer to really have a lot of time to set things up in a Claremont level way, I think it was Bendis, must have been, or at least Snyder at DC, because he didn't really have no Snyder didn't have any really long runs, but it must have been
no,
Bendis because he was always on an Avenger after an Avenger, sets up this event, it does this, so and that's in the 2000s.
yeah,
Maybe Hickman now, or Hickman back in during his Avengers, but
uh,
still
I mean,
not a very long time.
yeah, I mean, he started everything with that the mutant Kuroka, and then unfortunately he left and left it for other people to handle. But
Yeah,
I will agree with you about Bendis, especially on the Ultimate Spider-Man. It's just him and Bagley, for the most part, doing the entire run was pretty damn amazing. And Bendis just pretty much. My wife just happens to be a seventh grade teacher, and I had to read one of the issues, and she's like, "Oh my God, this is how teenagers are." And so it's just like he nailed that to a tease.
no, he's a very talented writer. Obviously, he's built his whole career around it. But I think now it's getting more difficult and more rare. I was listening to Chip Zdarsky speak because he was more like when he was at Marvel, his whole thing was trying to get them to do evergreen books. Like
Right.
you always want a book on the shelf that you can hand someone.
Yeah.
And he said that in an interview that no one else really seemed to jive with that. Um, I feel you have to agree with him there because I think Marvel, compared to DC, struggles in having like a consistent selection of books on the shelf. Like
Right.
when you go to DC, you will see like their biggest hits always. You'll always see like the Killing Joke or Watchmen or Dark Knight Returns. Like they
Yep.
have their even newer stuff like or any Swamp Thing or Grant Morrison's Doom Patrol, or Scott Snyder's Court of Owls. You'll never see a comic shelf without Court of Owls. So they're
Yep.
good at like keeping their consistent evergreen catalog.
Hmm.
Marvel, the other day I wanted to get I'm on a big X-Men kick right now because of X-Men 97, right?
Right.
So I wanted to look up God Loves Man Kills. And
Classic
that
story. Yeah.
Yeah, and that book I had to go on eBay, and I think the last time it was printed was 2008. I could be wrong, but it's like that's one of like the most referenced, at least in the zeitgeist. That is a
Right.
iconic story. It was a graphic novel, referenced in X-Men 2. So it's like, you think that or uh, there's plenty of examples, but you just think there would be a consistent catalog, but they don't really do that. I
No.
will say that in terms of long running stories, some do slide on in,
Right.
and like in terms of seminal ones, I think the last one was Immortal Hulk by Al Ewing and Joe Bennett, because
Yep.
that was a series where it's just for the most part two people making their book, doing a big thing, taking a big swing, and it was I love it. It's one of my absolute favorites in modern times.
I
So
mean,
so yeah.
it definitely went from like a superhero type of Hulk to this entire thing of horror, and it's just nothing. It was definitely nothing I'd ever read before. It was just like concepts that they came up with for that one was just like, where did you guys get these ideas? And it was a great run. It was crazy, but it was a great run.
One of my favorite bits from that is when they Roxxon trademarks or copyrights the Hulk IP. So they're like, and now we're gonna make our own Hulk. We're gonna make you basically illegal. Like that's just such a fun concept. Like their Immortal Thor run, that one's getting me because Roxxon has bought the Marvel Universe, Marvel Comics,
Yeah,
like
I
in
saw.
yeah, and now they're going to make like it's like, oh, we bought the rights to Thor, now we're gonna make our own Thor. Like what a fun thing, especially when you like always remember that like Jack and Stan always put Marvel as an entity within the book, so that's always good fun. But wait, we've gone off on a massive tangent. We have books we need to sell.
So the campaign's still going on today, right?
It launches today, yes,
Today.
and
All
it
right.
will be going towards May 3rd. So we got a whole month to get this going. Uh, After the month ends, I think the way Zoop runs, there will only be a limited dropped stock at an unknown date in the future. So this is the truly the only way as of right now to get this book and to secure your copy. Um, as I said before, we have many different options in terms of what you could buy. There are different covers. One of my favorites is the cover B by Lyndon Cahill, who's a fantastic artist, and they did like this fun cover where in the middle it's a speech bubble with the title and everything, and all around it are a bunch of the legally distinct characters from all throughout the book, and it's so much fun to see like a funny animal character a la Scrooge McDuck next to like a Rob Liefeld extreme character because it really just puts everything in perspective. And that one's one of the more artistically fun. We're doing a big bundle where you can get everything. You can get a digital copy, all the covers. There's only two covers because I don't believe in variants. I just have cover A and a cover B, and that's in the bundle you get that, the digital copy, and the exclusive poster. we're doing a retailer bundle. So you'll get copies of the book at cost, and you'll be able to select the covers you want. I know plenty of people on the team are alerting their local comic shops to get copies because they're all going to be hosting or trying to set up signings because we got people from all around the world. So hopefully this will be an international success, and I'll get to sleep on a bed of money for the rest of my for the rest of my life. But yeah, no, but seriously, so there's that. There's a little tip jar because even a little thing goes a long way in supporting this project. And as I said earlier, we have an exclusive poster by one of my longtime collaborators, Julianne Griep, and she does like a fun comic book pop art in like filled with homages and references to a lot of real life stuff. So she's got that covered. So yeah, it's a very simple campaign, but I don't believe in providing people too many options because that'll overwhelm you. What am I
Right.
supposed to get? This is to the point. I had a clear vision of what we're going to make, and it's going to be right there for you to potentially add to your collection. So yeah,
For those of you watching it, you'll see down below we do have a link to it. So just click on that link and support this project. That's all I can say. Louis, thank you so much for speaking with me. It was great talking to you, man. It really was.
thank you, Brian. I think we needed
It's
this conversation.
yeah.
I think we
This
just wanted to rant about comics.
yeah, it was. I truly enjoyed it. I can't wait. I really do hope it reaches its goal because, I would like to have a hard copy of this personally, myself. Uh, it,
Me too.
it's an it's an it's really an amazing journey through time and the history of comic books. It's highly recommended. I can't say enough about it. It's great, man. You guys did great.
Thank you. I also recommend it. I think everyone should buy two copies and save it for a later date. So yeah.
Again, Louis, thank you so much.
Thank you, Brian.
Uh,
Before we sign off, I just want to do a quick shout out. If
sure.
you have been at all interested in this, as Brian said, there's the Zoop campaign linked below. I'm Louis Southard. You can find me. I'm going to be screaming about this project from the hills at Louis Southard and at Louis J Southard online. And this project, like I said, 100 artists. I want to shout out some familiar names. We have Richard Pace, who did Batman. We have Netho Diaz, who's doing X-Men right now. Same Vasco Georgiev, same thing. Uh, you'll see a big list of names. You'll see your favorites, and there's a lot of new up and coming people as well. So your new favorite is right there waiting for you. So yeah,
Definitely.
I can't leave without shouting out some of them.
That's great. Again, thank you so much. Everyone watching, thank you for watching. Thank
See
you
ya,
again,
everyone.
Louis, and we'll see you guys soon.